Okay, so I think we'll get the meeting started. We'll let you go first, Scott. So
Okay.
you have to sit on here all night. Okay.
What are you saying, Lisa?
It'll be a short meeting.
I need to go get some coffee.
Yeah. So we'll start, I think, with the audit, and the committee has already been sent all the paperwork and the audit that you gave to us, Scott. So
Okay, and you sent the summary too?
yep, the summary,
Okay.
yep, and the management letter from today, or the disclosure letter from today.
Yeah, that's the response. Yeah, there was nothing really in that, but there was no problem. It shows that we had no problems, and standard letter.
Okay, so it's on the agenda for tomorrow night for approval. So I don't know if there's anything, if you wanted to go over the summary or anything like that.
Yeah, I can. You want me to go over the summary?
Or just, yeah, hit the highlights, anything they may need to know.
Okay. Oh, do you need to speak at the board meeting or?
I think if we run it by the committee and we have the summary, that should be okay.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think, Bill and Amy?
What typically happens?
Sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. But I know in the past we've had the summary and they get it ahead of time, and usually people just gloss over, to be honest with you. No offense, Scott, but when you start talking about an audit, people just gloss over. And I think the summary is more beneficial than reviewing the audit page by page, and then hit some highlights, and we'll make sure that they know for tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I also think you'd have to come here for our meeting tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. It's in person. I keep forgetting that.
We'll summarize it for you.
Okay.
Well, the summary's good.
Yeah. Well, that's why we do that, because it kind of, you get to 70 pages and you're like, and then that was, years back when you said flip through the book, you're never going to go through that when you in a meeting. And then we're like, well, here's just the high points, here's the points, and then some pages from the report. There's so much in it now. So I can go, I'll just go through. I have some, highlights and stuff like that. Besides what was on the summary. So
that'd be great.
I just want to thank the district office for throughout the audit. I mean, this is one of the most unusual years I've ever had, but our timing with the audit kind of worked out pretty well. We came early in March. We were ready at the beginning of March before anything happened. And then we came in June, after everything, it kind of settled down. And then we came in August before you had, the whole outbreak out by the college. So our timing wise to be able to come on site, because I've had some places I haven't been able to go to on site at all. So we were able to, and then going back and forth with email, especially with, new district, getting used to how everything works. It worked out very well. I think Lisa and her staff did a great job, because I know there was remotely. I know some days out there, some people would be there. And I think one of the days everybody was there, when I came during the summer. But anytime we needed information, I would just email Lisa, and I got it right away. Like you said, you've seen the report. There's so much information in it. So, but it worked out very well. And then timing wise, it, pretty much came out to them when we thought we'd have everything set. Looking at your financials, they were presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. You had an unmodified opinion. There was no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, no areas of non-compliance. And then you had the extra classroom report, which there was a couple recommendations we had on that one. I can talk that in a minute. One thing I always bring up if I do talk like in a board meeting is, when they get the financials, sometimes they see that and they're like, they go to page 1 in that position, they like look and see like, oh, we're negative, $15 million, we're in bad shape. I just always bring that up, that what that is district wide, and that includes your OPEB number. So your OPEB this year is $93 million. So there's no offset against that. So I always like to bring it up that you are in good financial condition. You know, if you see that negative, that's like you have the OPEB with nothing against it. And that's just a prescribed, reporting, how it's supposed to be reported, showing all liabilities, all assets the district has right on, page 1. So looking at that, you follow the prescribed standards. Overall, your district had almost $7.4 million in assets and liabilities of $3 million. Fund balance and reserves of $4.4 million. Looking at that, you had, 4 reserves of $753,000. You did use repair reserve. Would you like to see that you have reserves and you're using them? And then hopefully in the future, you'll probably be able to set up some more, but right now, the way times are, it's, you have some that you can be used. Your unassigned fund balance was 5.9, so a little over the 4%. But with what's going on, potential state aid, you did have 20% deductive of some state aid. And I still think there's potential of it. If things don't get better, I could still see they've done mid-year cuts years back if they had to. So lucky your district is in shape, or, you could withstand some of it, but it's a large number. At least to send me a sheet of what it would be to your district if the 20% came through. And it's a pretty big number. But you did account for, some, the 20% of the receivable that you didn't get. Overall, looking at your revenues to expenditures, you were short a little over $100,000. Largely that was looking at your revenues. Your state aid came, was lower than what was budgeted, but Lisa did the right thing, and you did the 20% deduct that was coming out of your August excess cost aid and your September BOCES aid. So this way you have it accounted for now, and if you do get it back, that's great, because it'll just get added into the 2021 year. We recommend our districts to show that, because just in case you don't get it back, or if it takes time to get it back, you don't know when. So looking at that, the other side is, I looked at, even though we didn't do your, other past 2 years, I put on there so you just kind of see how the district did. So last 2018, 2019, you spent 97% of your budget. This year you spent 95%. So there was a little more, areas of savings in the expenditure side. And a lot of it had to do that you shut, the district was shut down in March. So there was areas that you're able to save money on, like central services, pupil service, and transportation. So and you can't anticipate that, every year, but that was one of the, one thing that did happen, that you were able to spend less than, a little bit less than what was budgeted. What we like to look to see is that with your financial condition, that you're able to keep up the educational programs on a long-term basis by providing adequate resources and facilities. And looking at that, your cash position, you have almost $4.9 million. Your asset to liability ratio is still pretty good. It's over 2.46 to 1. So over 2 to 1. And then your budget, as you can, like I was mentioned, is well planned and it's structurally balanced. So usually your revenues are pretty close to. In the past, you've always been, got more revenue than what was budgeted. And like in the past, you spent 97%. So that means it's a pretty fair budget that you prepared. A couple other highlights. Your school lunch program had a loss of $3,800, but you only transferred $10,000 this year. So then it had a little bit of effect on it. So your fund balance is now $46,000 in school lunch. In the past, you had a loss of $13,000, you transferred 20. So actually this year got a little bit better for the school lunch program. And then looking at the capital fund, you had a deficit fund balance. If you see that, it's due to you have temporary funding with the bands, the bond anticipation notes, and then you that'll be limited when you go out for the serial bonds with the permanent financing. So for the district project. So that's basically how you are financially. Looking pretty well. The couple of recommendations that we had was in the was in the extra classroom. And that was I'm just going through making sure the central treasurer gets, deposits with backup within, it says 3 days in the manual, the state manual, but we look at it over a week. If they don't have the deposit to the central treasurer. And there's a couple times where the advisors didn't get it there and it would, back up. Inactive clubs, they were showing they're on 12 this year, which, with the, what was going on, we just had to mention it to the board, and they would have to, look and see out of those clubs, or some might never have financial activity, or it could have been this because of what was going on this year that they didn't have it. So the board would just have to go through and see, are these 12 clubs still, viable, or are they got to keep going in the future? And then profit and loss statements, they were done for some fundraisers, but not all. And we recommended that they have it done for, anytime there's a fundraiser done, there should be a profit and loss to see if that fundraiser is definitely worth doing. Especially what we're going through now. If you do have any fundraisers, they definitely should, keep track of that. But basically that's your, whole audit, summarized. Is there any questions or?
I don't have any.
Me either.
No, thank you.
You're welcome. And if a question does pop up, you can always, at least email, so if you have a question that does pop up, you can email her and she can contact me if you do have a question at a later time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Have a good night.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, so the next thing that we have on our agenda is I just wanted to give you an update on where we are with the grants, because we do have a lot of grant funding. It's over $1.8 million. That is federal, and we do think that we will get all the federal money. The only one that's state that I'm looking at now is the UPK. And all of the grants seem to be at a standstill. They have them, they're up there, they've been, up there on time, but they just, they're not really doing anything with them. So they're still under review, although we're moving forward as though, they're approved. So like I said, 275,000 of that 1.8 million is UPK. So that one does have the potential of being cut 20%. The other ones we think we'll get. And the only other concern that we have right now is the CARES Act funding. And I may have told you this already, but the CARES Act, the ESSER and GEARS, it's about $432,000 for us. And that after we submitted everything, then the day after, the deadline, they said, oh, well, New York did it all wrong, so we have to do it again. And we're not sure how we have to apply for it. So we haven't been told again how to apply for it another time in a different way. So as soon as that, guidance comes out, we'll apply for that funding, but that is federal. So I think, we'll get it. We just don't know how. So that's a little bit of a concern. And then just from what's remaining, what's outstanding, there's about, about 200,000 outstanding, but again, most of that is federal. So I think eventually we will see the money, but they're at a standstill right now with all the grants. So we'll keep you posted on that.
What was covered that we applied for the CARES Act for?
That was the piece that the state took our state aid away, and then we applied for it, and we did things like social studies teacher, the social worker, so things that were in our budget already, because that's what they were doing. They were supplementing what the state was supposed to pay us. So we just took, things that we had looked at that had the potential of being cut if we didn't get the funding, and we put that in the grant. We also put some of that equipment in that we had to purchase, or that we did purchase orders for, and then, of course, there's no equipment out there. But so we just put in things like that really we have in our budget anyway. But that we could say, well, you know, gee, if we don't get this funding, we may have to consider these cuts. So kinds of things that we were talking about at budget time. But I do think we'll get it. I just don't know how, so, which is usually the problem with the funding with the state. But anyway, we'll stay on top of that. I've been checking the grants finance every day and seeing if there's any updates on there. So we'll keep you posted on that. And then when they come out with guidance, you know, they may tell us that it has to be used for something different. So we may have to shift gears there too. So really it was just, you know, a way to get the money.
Is this just a ploy to hold on to the money for a while?
You know what, it could be, actually. I didn't really think about that, but it could be a cash flow thing. I bet there is something to that. But because I mean, they knew what everybody was doing. And then they knew, you know, they had a lot of the reports in because there was a deadline that we made, the first deadline, and then they extended the deadline. So they had a lot of the reports. So they knew what people were doing. And then the day after the second deadline, they said, oh, you know, New York did it all wrong. Well, they should have decided that before, you know, they had everybody submit. But so I really don't know what the guidelines are going to say at this point. Hopefully we'll get them soon. Okay, so the next thing, I just wanted to update you a little bit on the tax. We really haven't had any new tax certiorieries, but we were notified there was a pilot request from Corning, and we found out about the request, but we never were notified that there was an actual pilot in place. Well, apparently there was, and they were supposed to come off the tax rolls, but they didn't. And so we got a check from Corning. They paid the tax bill. We got a check from Corning and then got notification that they were supposed to have a pilot, which would have been about, it was about it's $50,553. So that's a big chunk of change that we would have had to return and not get. But Corning agreed to because then it never got taken off the tax rolls by the county. So Corning agreed to let us keep the tax money for this year, and then they would start the pilot next year. So that helps us a lot. That was to our benefit. I mean, it would have been a big loss to us. But anyway, that did work out, and I just wanted to let you know that because that was kind of up in the air. The fund balance, I usually do an update, but it's the same exact thing that he had in the audit summary. So it just shows you that we are bringing in about the same as what we're, sending out. And this year we did have to use a little bit of that planned use of fund balance, but that was okay. So it was a small amount, 110,000. So he really went through that summary that includes all the fund balance information in there anyway. So, and right now we're just looking at, we're looking at the current year, what we budgeted and where the salaries actually settled. So I should have some of that information for you at the next meeting where we can start seeing, where we did have some savings or where we are spending a little bit more. So, all right, so on the financial memorandum, the consultant service contract with Celia Reed for the school improvement plan, that's for planning and development, and that is being paid for out of the grant funds once they're approved. That school improvement grant that Colleen had been working on for the middle school, that's where that's coming from. You do have a budget amendment on there when, we did get some of the 20% cuts, and without knowing what's going on now, and I think we had already talked about this, we cut all the supply codes just across the board, 20%. And so I actually took that out of the code so it didn't look like it was available. So that's what that amendment is, to reduce the budget. Now, if we start getting all our money and, we still have to wait until December also and see what our actual state aid is, even before the 20% cut, because we don't even get that number till December. So we just felt like it was safer to cut those budgets right now. And we can always restore them later if, you know, good things happen. So that's what that amendment is. Occupational Health Services Agreement is agreement that we always have with Bassett to do our fit testing, our hearing tests, and things like that. So that's an annual agreement that we have with them. And we use that for our custodial staff, buildings and grounds, asbestos, and now our nursing. So that'll be new for us to add the nurses to that agreement, but so that they can get their fit testing also. And then just some surplus things there. So there's nothing earth shattering on the financial memorandum this time. Did you have any questions about that? No? Okay. And then there was one thing that I don't have on the agenda, but I did want to let you know that we are working on, we're looking at the retiree health insurance because our health insurance is a huge number in our budget. We pay a lot of money out for retirees, and we do have a very generous plan. We pay at 100%. And, you know, what we're looking at is, you know, the potential for some savings and maybe a Medigap plan, or, you know, looking at, okay, could we do a buyout or something like that with the retirees? Because once they hit the Medicare age, we're paying just as much as an individual plan. And it's really not covering, you know, because their Medicare covers most of it. So I have been in contact with the insurance company and the consultant, and what they did say, and this is what we're trying to figure out right now, is if we take the retirees off and put them on a Medigap plan, then which it has to be the same or better plan than we have now, and it would be. But our active employees potentially could go up more than normal because they'd still have to, you know, they use that money to cover. They use the extra money that they're making on the retirees to cover some of the actives. So we really need to find out what the impact would be on the actives if, you know, we did a different plan with the retirees. And they really didn't want to admit it, but they did say that we have the potential to save a lot because we have such a generous plan. So we are going to really look into that, to actively look at that. And that might be, I know in the past, it was right before I started, so it had to be, you know, over 10 years ago. There was a health insurance committee, and we may want to think about, you know, reconvening that just to look at different options, because there is some potential to save a lot of money out there with, you know, different ideas, but we also don't want to impact our active employees, you know. So I think it's something, it's definitely something worth looking at, and we are meeting about it, and we are getting some reports from the consultant. So we'll keep you posted about that. But we're talking about, you know, at least probably $500,000, and we could use that now. So, but, you know, and it could potentially be more, but I think there's a big savings there. But we did want to let you know that Tom and I are starting to look at that and meet with people about that.
Have you reached out to retirees who might have a family plan and not necessarily need it?
No, we haven't reached out to anybody yet, but the family plan, most of them pay 40%. So it's not really, it's a lot of money that they pay. Considering what some of them pay 10%, and it depends on when they retired and what the contract said. I think we have 37 retirees that do have the family plan, or they have, you know, it's two individuals, they cover themselves and their spouses. So we will be, you know, we'll be looking at that too. But they do pay a little bit. Well, and some of them pay a lot for the family plan, so it's not really an incentive to keep it.
Yeah, Lisa's done a great job compiling data. So right now we're just trying to fact find and, you know, just talk, and we'll come up with something. You know, at some point we'll either put some sort of informational brochure together for our retirees, or, you know, something that explains all of this at some point, because there is big money on the table out there, that's for sure.
And it wouldn't hurt the retirees.
No.
at all. Any change we make would not hurt them because, talking to a whole bunch of different people, they said, that the Medigap plan is actually probably better than what they're getting right now. So it wouldn't hurt them and it would be cheaper. So we just have to see what the impact would be on the rest of the plan.
Is there an age requirement for that?
Yeah.
An aid?
For Medigap? Yeah.
You have to be a certain age to qualify for it?
Oh yeah, it's Medicare eligible. So is that 65? It's 65, and we have the list of people that we have 223 that are Medicare eligible that could potentially switch to this plan. So we got some contracts and some ideas from other places, and some of them say, hey, we'll give you whatever X amount of dollars to drop our plan. So even if you paid them a year or two's worth of premiums, it would be worth it. So those are just the kinds of things that we're just starting to look at. So, but we'll keep you posted on that, and then maybe once we get some of the information together and we think we want to maybe head in some direction, that we should probably get a group together to look at it.
Finance group?
Finance group, yeah, yep. And I can start sharing the information as I get it, just so you can be looking it over.
Yeah.
But we haven't had our first meeting yet. I've just been gathering information.
And when would these types of changes take place?
I don't know. It would depend on, when we could get everything decided and fall into place, but we'd like to move on it, because if we could do something for the next budget cycle, that would be awesome.
So it's not going to help us with our financial issues for 2021.
For 2021, 2022, it could. Yeah, and I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how long that takes, but it would be a lot of marketing to people. I mean, the other thing is, if we just threw something out there and said, hey, we'll give you X amount of dollars, people might take that this year, but I don't know. But I think it's just something we have to do a little more research on before we actually do anything with it, because there could be things impacted that, we're not thinking about right now.
No, absolutely. We still have this budget gap for this current school year that so far we don't have any solutions for.
Yeah. Yeah. But I wouldn't plan on it for this year.
Right.
I just feel like everything always takes so much more time than it really should. So. But we'll keep you posted on that. And I don't have anything else for this meeting unless you have anything.
Do you have any sense of how the tax collections are going?
I think we are collecting about normal amount. So I know we're getting, a ton of calls, people saying, hey, did you get, because a lot of times people like to come in and pay it, and, we're not allowing that. So people are getting a little bit nervous this year, but there's been a lot of tax payments. And I think it's been normal so far. So, but we'll keep you posted on that. We don't have long, a couple weeks left for the collection period.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing else, then I guess we had a short meeting today. So, and
Imagine that.
yeah. So we'll just do the audit summary then tomorrow. And I think everybody has it. So if they had any questions, they can ask. Okay. All right. Well, see ya.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.